The Kuji-In or the Kuji-Kiri are the 9 symbols or the 9 slices. It's a meditative technique. It's a meditative practice. It's a meditative ritual situation. I mean, you've probably seen it. Dude sits on his knees and he's got his sword in his little holster, and he does 9 slices, like a. And each slice represents a different level of awareness of the situation. As you get higher recently, because I have a hard time meditating, or I did before, a lot more before. I grew up Muslim, so I was raised to pray 5 times a day. And that is a meditation in and of itself. And I think that is the same kind of practice and technique that connects you to the oneness of what you would call the God of the universe, or what have you. And that didn't really stick. I was a kid and I grew up doing it, and between the language barrier, not the barrier, I mean, I can read and write Arabic and I can understand a little bit of it. I cannot really speak it, but just the barrier of what you're saying versus what you're doing, and the connection. You're not really traditionally supposed to do it in your native tongue, even though you can, and and that's cool. But be that as it may, I grew up, kind of fell out of touch with it, and within the past few years fell back in touch with it, and things have kind of been stacking up in cool, interesting ways. Not because of it only, I just know it helps me now. So what they alternatively have are something called the Kuji-In, which are the 9 seals, the 9 symbols. And each seal or symbol represents an idea that when you stack up on top of each other, you reach this peaceful mind state. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of what I do, in hopes that it helps you, because this podcast and all my content, I want to help you. And that's the thing about it. I first am here to present the basic ideas of what are going on, the basic concepts. Ask anyone who knows me. Basic concepts has been in my aura and in my mind and in my spirit, and just what I've been doing since I was a youth, like young. I'm still young, fairly, but just a child. Kuji-Kiri. So I personally, when it comes to meditating, I like to find a mantra to get you into the meditation. There's a lot of things that you can look up and find and figure out mantras. There are tons of mantras you can use to get you centered. I don't necessarily like any of them. I know I've also read a book, or started to read a book by this guy who had a nervous breakdown on TV.
Now, one of the world's most commonly prescribed medications may be providing a big bonus. Researchers report people who take cholesterol-lowering drugs called statins for at least 5 years may also lower their risk for cancer. But it's too early to prescribe statins slowly for cancer production. At this point, I realize I'm helpless, so I bail right in the middle. That does it for news. We're going to go back now.
He was a newscaster, and then he just, from that point on, just got in touch with himself, became the spiritual leader, thought leader or whatever, and he wrote a book on meditation. It's a meditation for the restless or something. I forget his name. What got me into meditation was starting to read that book, and not because of what he said, just because of why am I reading this guy's trauma? He's telling you how bad his life is and how easy it could be for you, and I'm like, man, you don't need someone to tell you how shitty they have it going on for you to fucking be like, yeah, man, maybe I can, whatever. It's not like you don't need someone to say, don't take my word for it. You'll never have the same life as somebody else. So that's just a peace offering into the idea of you sometimes just have to sit down with yourself. Sometimes you just have to sit down with yourself in complete silence. And when people are like, well, it's hard because I can't focus or whatever. Yeah, I know, because that's you, and it's fine, and whatever. And just listen and just ignore. Just listen, ignore. And the mantra helps you ignore. So my mantra, and I'll share with you, is just breathing. So whenever I'm going down to meditate, or I'm going to sit and I want to get quiet, and when I finally get in the zone, or to get to the zone, and I'm You're focused on your breathing. You're only when I say focus on your breathing, you're literally thinking about breathing. You're thinking about your breathing. You take back control of that subconscious thing. Get conscious about the subconscious. And when you're breathing, I mean, to remind myself to do it, I say just breathing. Just breathing. And you're going to have mad thoughts attack you. There's going to be so many thoughts. You're going to have ideas and things and like it's going to happen. Sometimes it won't. And either way, it's good. When you're meditating, that's good. And so take the thoughts, ignore them. Sometimes you have to think them through and I mean, just try to ignore them. But if you got to think it through, you think it through. Sometimes you'll be caught in a thought and you'll be like, oh, come back. And that's the fun part, or it becomes the fun part, because then you start to see what's your brain's thinking about without you trying to think. And you see where your brain keeps going. And then what happens, and here's what's crazy. This is before you even get into the Kuji-Kiri. You start to think things that you were thinking before, that you start to remember things. I mean, that's a big thing for me, like not remember, but you start to figure out solutions to problems that you had. And that's what's cool. Like I think so much. I beat myself up over the head.
Brooklyn.
It's just what it is. And just breathing and just breathing and just breathing. It's so difficult to make yourself stop doing stuff. But think about how much you're just like on Instagram. Just scrolling. That's some people's mantra. Just scrolling. What you doing? Just scrolling. Killing time, just scrolling. Some of you motherfuckers are just trolling. You should get back to just breathing. Just exist for a fucking second. So, you breathe, you knock those thoughts out, keep knocking the thoughts out. Deeper breaths, you knock the thoughts out, they come, you let them go. And then, when you're ready, it may be 5 minutes, it may be immediately, it may be sometimes I do it try to do it quick when I don't have time. I don't know. It doesn't matter. You get into your first symbol. The first symbol is Rin. Power. In the seals and in the symbols, power, you do your hands like this. You take your clasps and you just point it. Don't squeeze too hard. You could if you're a martial artist. There's like a martial artist way to do it, and then there's like a, what do they call it? A philosopher, like the everyday person. It's like a meditator's way to do it. Martial artists do it because their whole body and they think like a weapon and all that shit. It's always tough. But you can do either one. They both work though, because these are meridian. We're starting to work with electronic meridian shit, and that's so crazy. It's so fun. It reminds me of Avatar, The Last Airbender, or something like weird. Anyways, so you have power, and power represents the raw energy. It's your lowest chakra. It's the fire that just goes no matter what. It's the fire. You can't stop it. You can only hope to contain it. And when you realize that you have the power to do whatever it is that you want, that's when you start to realize your power is the power that you're seeking. You have it already. It's there. You're it. Well, we won't get there yet. That's too deep. So you have Rin, and you're supposed to say something with each one of these. I've kind of read up and studied and kind of done a little with this research, and I found that while the mantras are cool and I would love to say them in Sanskrit and memorize them, I'm not at that level yet. I just got down the names and all the ideas and concepts and the philosophy and whatever. So I'm not tripping too hard if I don't have those mantras memorized, because it's not about that. It's about some of the mantras are simple in English. So the power mantra, did you say to yourself, Orin, power? I have the power. I have the power to do whatever it is that I want. I personally like to add my own little flair. I say I have the power to do and put whatever it is, all my energy into whatever it is in my mind pleases or my mind wants. I have the power since I was born. I've had the power to put my energy towards whatever it is that I would like to, and whatever my mind desires outside my body. Like you have that power. You have the freedom of choice. We won't get into fate and all that kind of stuff. Like what you choose is that's a whole nother story. Sometimes you can just stop at this. Sometimes you just need this. And that's okay. Like as you're learning this, and I was doing it too, they're supposed to be stacked. You can't go to the next one unless you get the first one. And the first one, power, like there's no need to go to Zen or anything beyond that if you don't know that you have the power. So once you get the idea down that I have the power, then you go to Pyo. Or Kyo. Either way. So it's the same thing, hands clasped. And then you take your middle fingers and you bring them up over your pointers. Now, if you did it individually, it would just look like you got the two bangers, right? And then you take the other two fingers, you clasp them, and then you got Pyo. Now, this is the meditator's way to do it because it's soft. But if you want to do the martial artist way, touch those fingers. It may hurt at first. You got to get used to it. How to get from one to the other? I usually go from the prayer hands to Urin, and then I go back to prayer hands, and then I go to Pyo. You know, sometimes you may have to do this with your fingers. Don't fucking trip if you can't, man. You'll get used to it. It's not about the fucking technicality of that shit. So, Pyo is potential. It's your potential. It's what you could possibly do with all that power. Because now that you have the power, it's like, what do you do with it? It's all still power, but if it's not, it's like object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by another object, and an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon by another object in a different direction of equal or greater force. That's the energy equation. That's the energy theory. Now the potential is where you could possibly be going. That goes back to our particle episode. If you're interested in checking that out, particle episode. Yeah, you never really know. You are a bunch of particles. You have the potential to be wherever, but you are energy. So you are the electrons. So the mantra for Pyo or Kyo is, I have the potential. I have the potential to do whatever it is I put my mind to. So I have the power. I have the potential. You don't do it like that. I make sure I say them all, and I say the name, and I understand what I'm saying, and I feel it. And you have to feel it. You have to understand. You have to be there. And then once you get to the next one, Pyo, that's the potential. Then what you have to, the next important step after potential is To. Now, there's two ways to do it. There's the meditative way, which is you're taking your two pointers, the ones that you've been pointing and locking in with each other, and you're going to internalize them. You're going to put them into each other like that, and then you're going to clasp your other hands. You're going to point your two other fingers outside. Now, the meditative way, I usually don't do the meditative way. I only do the meditative way when my fingers are too dry and I can't get a good hold on them. But the warrior way, the martial arts way, after you go Pyo, this is crazy. Ready? Watch this. You take your pointer and you put it down in between your middle finger and your ring, and you take your other one, you do the same, and then you take your middle fingers and you lock them down. So again, your pointers both go down. They skip a hole. Don't put them in between the pointer and the middle. Put them in between the middle and the ring. So you put one down, and then you put the other down. It's gonna feel tight. And then you take your two middle fingers and you put them in that hole, and you lock it, and you lock them in. You gotta work your fingers, and you lock them in, and you lock that meridian in. So I usually go from prayer hands, put them down, To. This is To. Now To, and keep your pointer straight. To is harmony. To is when you internalize your power and you internalize your potential and you realize that it's all within you, then you become at peace. Then you start to realize the next mantra, which is, everything is the way it is. That's it. Everything is the way it is. Some things you can't change. Some things you can. But everything is the way it is. Somebody did that? Yes, they did that. Don't get upset. It just is the way it is. You can get upset. But then when you come back to zero, realize everything is the way it is. You have to accept. Like the meditative part, like let's take this for example. What do you hear? What do you hear where you are? What do you hear on this video? You know, what's real? What's happening? What are you experiencing? Everything just is the way it is. So when you're meditating, if there's noise outside, that's just there. Just because you observe it doesn't make it anything. It just is. Your observation of it makes you aware of it, or barely if you're not paying attention, but your observation of it doesn't change what it is. Your observation just changes how you interpret it, or it just dictates how you interpret it. And there are people can be looking at the same thing, the same sound, the same noise, the same situation, the same thing happening, and experience it in a different way. And your experience is your truth. The truth is that it just is. So you're in harmony. So again, rin, power, pyo, potential, to, harmony. Now, some of these feel good, man. When you really like sit and you like let that energy flow and you like understand what's good, man, harmony. The next one is Sha, my favorite. So last time you put your pointers in between your middle and your ring. This time you're going to put your ring in between your middle and your pointer. So you're going to go up like that. And then you take your middle fingers again, lock it down. Your middle fingers are the locking ones. And then you should have this going on, top and bottom. So if that's too complicated, you can do the non-martial arts way and just take your two middle fingers and just lock them in with the rings and do that. A very peaceful one. Sha is healing. After you take your power and your potential and you harmonize it and you internalize it, then you can work on healing. Healing yourself, healing those around you, healing the world, one person at a time, one step at a time, one word at a time, one thought at a time, one fucking second at a time. Healing. I really, really, really enjoy sitting in Sha. I really enjoy that. Healing. Because I believe that's what a lot of people are. Fuck a lot of people. Me. I focus on the healing. For the peace. So healing. Now, the mantra for this is I usually say I have the power and the potential to heal. I can heal, and I am healing myself. I have the power and the potential to heal myself and others in the world around me, and everything I do is for healing. So you think just feel healing feelings, right? You have to feel the healing feelings. Anyways, I hope you're able to see this. Hopefully my hands aren't like out of frame. And then after Sha, then you have Kai, which is intuition. And Kai, intuition, that level, it starts to get metaphysical. Because intuition is like guessing what's going to happen. And guessing what's going to happen only can truly exist if you realize, or when you realize, that you and I are the same person, or the same being, or the same thing, the same energy, the same planet. And I don't mean like we're doing the same things exactly, but we are the same thing. So another way to think about it is when you get quiet and you say, take a minute to look, if you think about what's inside of you, what's in your head, right? Or what's in you and what's inside you, and then think about everything around you that's not you. You have to not separate that. You have to, you can't view that as an existent concept. It can't be like, well, there's me and then there's this room and then there's the air in the room. No, it's like it just is. There's no you anymore. It's like the energy. I don't want to say the it, but the God power. It's like, the best way to put it is look inside. But not inside yourself. When I say look inside, go back to listening. Listen. All of that was you. I mean, I say us. You consuming this is part of the realization. You experienced that just now. So if it's hard to get, I would say Google it. But like, yeah, maybe you got to Google it. There's also some links that you can get that really talk about like the, they call it the Dharma, the philosophy of it. But, you know, the intuition comes from, like when you guess what somebody's going to do, it's a martial artist concept. You know, you just take your fingers, also the hands, they just go right at the base of the fingertips. It's like guessing what someone's going to do in the martial artist one. You know, when you can kind of almost like to the point 0001 see their body and predict what they're going to do, you know, that kind of thing. Or when you look at someone's face and you can predict, like there's certain things you can predict. That intuition, you've practiced that muscle. It's having that with everything. It's realizing that, but that's the being one thing. So the intuition comes from the realization that you have stake in like you are everything, or everything is you. But you know, it's hard to explain. But it's not if you're a good teacher. I'm not the greatest teacher. This is the first time I'm really trying to explain this to someone. So I hope that concept kind of stuck. Now this is very similar to the next one, which is Jin, which is awareness. Now intuition and awareness are almost one and the same. One is like a predictive gut guessing, and awareness is intuition is the predictive gut guessing, and awareness is the realization that you are everything, or you are nothing, and you are like the distance between you and the next person. You realize it's the air molecule, so there's not nothing there, right? It's not a vacuum. But to realize that space between you two is also you two and also you. And like when I explain something to you and you realize it, it's the global consciousness and we're all realizing it. And if we all see something and realize something together and we share that experience, then we can all kind of get to the same synchronicity where we're keeping the earth intact. But I don't know. It depends whether the light energy or the dark energy is going to take over. That's the idea. That's the idea with all of these things. There's people that take and there's people that leave. There's people that like take for business or money or for gain, and then there's people that like tend to leave or preserve or whatever. And like, you know, and the thing about the human experience, the yin and the yang is they meet on opposite ends. So when you call somebody conservative, I mean, or when you have like somebody who's like really liberal, but the liberal person is more conservative with what they do and how they act, and the conservation is a big thing in their home. They're conservative. And people who are conservative, who are like liberal with the way they do this and do that and spend their money or eat or whatever. I'm not saying this is all the thing, but you know, it's all the same. You know, capitalism, socialism, this ism, that ism, it's all the same shit. You and I are connected underneath the water. People talk about being on an island. You're on that land and I'm on this land, but the land connects underneath, so we're technically on the same land. If the water wasn't there, we could walk to each other. So it's just like, how do you have the resources to get you over the water or across the water is the real thing. But be that as it may. Kai, Jin. These two mantras that you say to yourself is, I am in. I say look in. I think about looking in. I'm aware. I have the intuition. You start to realize that the sounds that you're hearing are just part of the experience. Then you move to Retsu. Retsu is when you take your hand, you put your pointer of the other hand in the palm. I think there's a proper hand to use, but hopefully I'm not teaching you the wrong one. And then you put your thumb down. Now, this hand here is supposed to represent the body. And this finger here is supposed to represent the spirit. And Retsu is dimension, which is the point at which your body and your spirit meet. You know, when somebody dies, like, what does that mean when they die? Do they go somewhere? Why do they stop moving? Like, what is it that leaves them when their soul is gone or the spirit is gone? So Retsu is dimension, and that's when you realize that you are a brain with veins hanging out and nerves hanging out underneath, sitting inside of a body that you're just pulling and controlling. You're not really the body, you know, you are what is inside of the body, the experience. If you were the body, you would also be think about your body is also the bacteria. Your body is cells moving around and doing things. It's all doing its own thing, but your spirit is what's holding it together. So that is a little bit trippy for some folks, but you know, work your way up from power. When you work your way up from power, potential, you know, when you internalize it, you know, and after you internalize it, you're going to heal. And after you heal, then you'll be able to realize that you and the person you're healing, you're actually healing yourself. And that's when you realize that it's all part of the experience. And then after dimension, you go to creation. And creation is the Jay-Z thing. Creation is when you realize that the power that is all the energy and all that stuff, it's just your ability to create. You can create experience, you can create things, you can create ideas, you can create. The greatest power that you have ever been given was the power from birth to direct your mind to whatever ends you desire. That's it. That's it. That's the creator's power. That's the power of the creator. He gave you that power, or she gave you that power, or it gave you that power. Like ad infinitum is the power to create. You were created to create. Infinity. And that's why we've made things. We already did the simulation episode. So you have the power to create, you know, creation. I respect the creation. When I do this, when I get to this, my mantra is I have the ability to create whatever it is that I desire. And I'm grateful. I have to feel gratitude, because that is a crazy power, man. That's just unbelievable. And this is like, again, we're here with the heavy shit. And then after that, then you get to Zen. And the Zen is you take the hand that was the body for your dimension, for your spirit, and you just drop it down. And Zen is not just peace, but Zen is the ultimate realization that you're everything and nothing at the same time. And I don't mean like I'm all that I want to be and I'm nothing that I want to be at the same time. It's like you are every person that exists. Like we have already happened. If you look at everyone at the same time, there's no way that it's just your experience and then it's done. It's like you are part of this conglomerate thing happening that means so much. But then when you look far enough away, it means so little. And then around that starts to look like so much. But if you start to move far enough away, that seems like so little. So it's like this idea that you are everything and nothing. And when you realize that, and I don't mean realize it like I get it. I mean like you like feelize that. You have to feel it and really, really internalize it. You get a little numb. And then you're just, then you're not angry. Then it's like, what are you mad about? I mean, that shit works for me. I'm offering that to you because we ninjas, man.
I don't give a fuck, that's why I'm smoking in the open.